Swiss Army knife deal. Here's Allen on 2nd and 10. Stepping up into the logo and throw. He's got Diggs wide open. It's caught. Touchdown. 46-yard strike. Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs.
The Buffalo Bills are still the team to beat in the NFL, and they showed you why. They showed you why, because not only are they coming for you on that night, they're coming for your souls. I keep saying it over and over and over again. They're not only coming for your souls, they are coming to mess you up. Not just beat you, but dispatch you into the next week, wondering about the future. That's what a championship football team does. Not only executes the game plan, but performs in such a way that you leave there thinking you have no shot if you see him again, and leave you reeling and your game plan's in tatters. And that's what the Buffalo Bills did to the Titans, who put Malik Willis in the game with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter after Tannehill threw a pick six, Matt Milano's first such interception of his terrific career.
That was Rich Eisen on his show, NFL Network analyst and former ESPN analyst. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Week 2 Roundtable on the Slack and McGregor Sports Podcast, and everything he just said about the Bills is correct. You couldn't have worded any better. This team is by far the best team in the NFL right now, given that the Bills do have a load of injuries on that injury report, which we will go through. The Dolphins also have some key injuries coming into the Week 3 matchup, Bills versus Dolphins. Both teams 2-0 for the division. It's going to be a big game this Sunday at 1 o'clock in Miami. The more big games we have, the better. And honestly, this is for bragging rights, and you couldn't have asked for a better way to start the season. Bills 2-0, and now they're taking on Miami. And Miami's coming up too. I mean, the shit I said about Tua last week, if he keeps playing like this, I'm going to be biting my own words. Because he had a hell of a game last week against Baltimore in a comeback win. And Tyreek Hill looks good. Jalen Waddle looks good. They both look dangerous. And that's going to be a big concern going into this game for the Bills, with injuries to Dane Jackson, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. You have Christian Benford and Kyrie Elam. You have Taron Johnson in the slot. Sure, you have Jaquan Johnson behind Micah Hyde, who's been a good depth piece, and DeMar Hamlin, who they like, but we don't know what's going to happen. You know, these guys are either limited or just did not practice in these walkthroughs they're doing right now. So we're just going to have to, wait and see as how the week goes and plays out until we actually know who's going to play on Sunday. And it's going to be hot. It's going to be 89 degrees there. And Miami wears their white uniforms at home, and Bill's going to be wearing those blue uniforms. They're going to get hot. It's going to get sweaty. So these boys better be drinking some fucking water, because if they're not, they're going to start cramping up. And that's kind of what they did in the Rams game. You saw Saffold went down for a minute, and I think they were all cramping up because it was hot in L.A. It was like over 100 degrees there week 1. It's going to be a hell of a fucking game, and I can't wait. I can't fucking wait, because I hate Miami, and I'm sure Miami hates us, especially after last year. Last year, the Bills came into Miami 0-1. Miami was 1-0, top of the division. The Bills get the Tua, he gets hurt, and then the Dolphins season kind of goes down the fucking drain after that game. So, Dolphins want some revenge. Bills want to stay on top. It's going to be a fucking great game, and I'm excited. And you should be too, because this is a very important game going into the fucking next week here of the NFL season. So the Bills beat the Titans 41-7 at home in the opener. Like I said, I was at the game, and you wanted this. You wanted to be at this game. The attendance was 70,683 fans, according to Pro Football Reference here. And it was fucking loud. It was pandemonium. It was fucking awesome. And Bills Mafia showed up and delivered. And I definitely think it got to Tennessee a bit, because they couldn't get anything going on offense. Nothing went right for Tennessee after the first touchdown by Derrick Henry. After that, they couldn't do shit. Jack squat, really. And I don't know what their game plan was going into this game. I don't know if they just thought they could run the ball over the Bills like they did the last year to 2 years, but that certainly wasn't the case this time around with this team. And honestly, after the first 2 drives with both teams scored a touchdown, you thought, all right, maybe we could see a back and forth game here. But after the first Diggs touchdown, it was all done. It was already all done because the Bills got on a roll after that, and the Titans just couldn't come back. They couldn't get anything going. It was definitely nice to see, considering that the Titans have had the Bills number the last 2 years, not to mention 2 situations happened in both those games. In 2020, Titans violated the COVID protocol. Their whole team breaks out. The whole facility breaks out with COVID. Nobody knows if the game's actually going to get played, and then they end up playing the game on Tuesday Night Football. The Bills get swamped. Derrick Henry takes Josh Norman's soul, basically, and the Bills just never got anything going in that game. And then last year, the game was neck and neck. Josh Allen, 4th and 1, slips. And if he didn't slip, the Bills probably would have won the game. I'm happy we won this game because the last 2 years have been brutal and it's just been annoying losing to the Titans. Not to say that the Titans don't have some good players. Obviously, they have Derrick Henry and they did have A.J. Brown at one point, but that's clearly a self-inflicting wound. You could see they're missing him right now. They have Robert Woods, but they're using him as a run blocker. They're not even using him or throwing the ball to him, really. They have Kevin Byard as a safety. He's a good safety. They have some good players. Maybe they need to go into a rebuild, or maybe Mike Vrabel will figure this thing out. Again, it's still early. We're going into week 3 now. It's still early. And Mike Vrabel's had winning seasons since he got to Tennessee, but it is not looking good there right now. It is looking ugly as fuck. Allen in this game was 26 of 38 for 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. He got sacked once, but what a fucking game for Josh. And he only took 3 quarters to do it. They took the starters out after Tennessee did. And Josh only had to play 3 quarters. I mean, what the fuck? He is an animal, man. He is an animal. And again, I'm a Bills fan. So if you're watching this and you're not a Bills fan, understand I have a conscious bias to this team. I've been watching this team my whole life. I'm from Buffalo, so it is what it is. We're going to be talking about the other teams, don't worry. But what a game for Josh Allen. And he didn't even run. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. He did run one time for 10 yards, but they didn't even need him to run. And that's a big part of his game. And they just threw the ball. They threw the ball 1.21 times. That's what they were saying on WGR. 21 times in a row they threw the football. I mean, they're just a fucking juggernaut on offense, and I love it. It's so nice to see after all these years. And I will never take it for granted. On the other side, Ryan Tannehill was 11 of 20 for 117 yards and 2 interceptions. He got sacked twice. He did attempt to run once for 2 yards. And given when Tannehill was on his legs against the Bills, he was able to gain yardage, believe it or not. And this time they didn't allow it. And the Bills also had a great game plan against Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had 13 attempts for 25 yards, given he did get the 1 touchdown. But his longest run of the night was for 9 yards. Derrick Henry last year was the best running back in the league before he got hurt. And now he looks like a fucking shell of himself. Doesn't look anything close to that. And this team was the number 1 seed in the AFC last year? That's why I was screaming in the fucking stadium. I was like, this was the number 1 seed last year? They look nothing like it. And they're in the worst division in football right now. They're 0-2. Jacksonville looks better than Tennessee right now. You could even make an argument that Houston looks better than Tennessee right now. Indy, I wouldn't say that. But, my God. My God. It's been a crazy start to the NFL season, that's for sure. I mean, the Bills were just flawless. But if we did have to nitpick, the running game could have been better. The running game, the Bills could not get a running game going. But it didn't matter. Because they put 41 points on the board. It didn't matter. Bills put 7 points up in the first quarter, 10 points in the second quarter, 24 points in the third quarter, and then the starters were benched for the backups so they could rest their guys for the following week. Fourth quarter, nobody scored. It went from what felt like actually another playoff game, if you want to look at it like that, because these teams were in the playoffs last year, to then a regular season game. And then before you know it, it was a fucking preseason game. I mean, just all over the place. I can't say enough about this team. Stephon Diggs is insane and making a case for top receiver this year. He's making a case for it. because what a fucking game he had. Given Gabe Davis was out, Diggs had 12 receptions for 148 yards and 3 touchdowns. Longest reception of the night was for 46 yards. He was targeted 15 times. And they didn't even double cover Diggs. Diggs was basically on Caleb Farley all night. And he got cooked. He was burnt toast by the end of the night. Diggs was just killing it. He was creating separation, getting open. Even Jake Kumaro made some good fucking separation. He got 2 receptions out of 3 targets for 50 yards. Titans just had no way of stopping this fucking team. No way of stopping this team. The defense was good too for the Bills. I mean, Jordan Poyer had an interception. Matt Milano had an interception, which ended up being a pick 6 for a touchdown. We were right there on the 20-yard line. Saw the whole thing. It was beautiful. Greg Rousseau had a great game. He had a sack in this game. He had 4 tackles. He had 2 tackles for a loss. Greg Rousseau and Von Miller is fucking deadly together. Even though Von, from the stat sheet, I mean, Von had 1 tackle, which ended up being for a loss. Although Von may have been quiet on the TV, I was watching Von. I was looking straight at him. He was there every time. They were creating pressure. They were bull rushing. They were getting after Tannehill. They were getting after that Titans offensive line. Taylor Lewan went down early in the game, their left tackle, so their backup left tackle went in. He never returned. And the Bills just bullied the Titans all night. I mean, just the defense was phenomenal. Although there were a lot of injuries. Dane Jackson, he ended up going to the hospital. He ended up being cleared, though. He's okay. Don't know how long he's going to be out. He avoided a major injury, so that's good. Micah Hyde has going for a second opinion for his neck. He's had 2 neck injuries since 2019. I didn't know that. Jordan Poyer has a foot issue right now, although they didn't say anything about it really being serious as far as I saw. So, like I said, the Bills have some injuries, but this team is just fully loaded with depth, too. The Bills didn't have Ed Oliver, Tim Settle, or Gabriel Davis. And they put 41 points on the board and only allowed 7. And Tre'Davious White's still out. Remember Tre'Davious White? How could you forget Tre'Davious White? He's not in. He's not playing. He hasn't played in damn near almost a year. He hasn't played since Thanksgiving of last year, after he got that non-contact ACL injury against New Orleans. And his timeline to come back is October, November. But these corners are still playing good. I mean, it sucks that Dane Jackson got hurt, but Kyrie Elam and Christian Benford look good. Cam Lewis, he's on the injury report too, but I think he was a full go. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check that. But he looked good in the preseason. The Bills have depth at corner. That's not the issue. It's just they need to get healthy. And they need to get healthy fast. I'm not sure who's going to play Sunday. It's going to be a tough matchup defensively. You've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, the deadliest duo right now for receiving in the league. They are both fast. 2 fastest receivers in the game right now. And looking at receiving yards, Tyreek Hill's 1, Stephon Diggs is 2, Jalen Waddle's 3. This could be a shootout, this game. This is going to be a big game. This could be a fucking shootout. Or the Bills' defense could get to Tua. Their left tackle, Teron Armstead, longtime New Orleans Saint, now a Miami Dolphin. He's hurt right now. If he don't play and Von Miller goes up against their backup left tackle, it's going to be a long day for Tua. Or maybe he goes to the right tackle, and that's going to be Tua's blind side, considering the fact that Tua throws left. So, who knows? But it's going to be a fucking game. Like I just said, it's going to be a fucking game. Let's move on to the other games, and then we'll come back to this. So, Thursday Night Football, this was the first Amazon Prime game. I guess it only had around 12 million viewers or something like that, because you have to have Prime in order to watch the game, and not everybody obviously has Amazon Prime Video. Not the best ratings for a primetime game. It's also a brand new thing they're trying out. This was close. Chargers had this game, and then Justin Herbert got hurt on a sack, which once he got sacked, you saw the one Kansas City helmet, it like dug into his ribs, and you knew it was a rib injury, the way he was walking, the way he was breathing. He was hurting. Ended up being a cartilage issue he's going to have. Hopefully it's not a lingering issue for the Chargers, but if it is, they're going to have to monitor it, and especially for fantasy owners, you're going to have to monitor that throughout the week, because I know I am. He's in both my leagues right now. Not that that's the point, just pointing it out there. Chargers had this game, and then they did what they always do. The Chargers are going to charger, and they just they let it get away. You saw before Herbert threw the pick six. You saw before the play started. They showed the replay. Gerald Everett, their tight end, former Ram, former Seahawk, he was tired. He wanted to come out of the game, and the coach, Brandon Staley, left him out there, and he was just gassed, and he was the guy the play call was going to. When Justin Herbert threw the ball to Everett, he didn't even put his hands up, and Kansas City corner read the play, that being Jalen Watson. Keep in mind, the story that came out about him after this game, 3 years ago, he was working at Wendy's. What did he do Thursday night, you may ask? Intercepted Justin Herbert for a 99-yard pick six. The game was done after this because Herbert wasn't the same. He wasn't after he got hurt like that. And he was hurting. There was a play he tried to get the first down. He was jogging, and you just saw he was in so much pain he couldn't do it. He couldn't walk really. He couldn't jog. He was in so much pain with his rib cartilage issue that it messed him up. And I honestly think it was messing up his mechanics too. So I'm not sure what's next for that whole situation. Although the Chargers do have a longer week now with them playing Thursday. Now they're going to play this Sunday, so they had some time. I'm sure Justin Herbert will be okay. And it just, being a Bills fan, you wanted to see Herbert get the win, but not going to take credit away from Mahomes and the Chiefs. Obviously, they still have a good team, even without Tyreek Hill, because it's Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't matter. Patrick Mahomes could lose Travis Kelce and he'd still be good. It's just the matter of the fact that if you have that good of a quarterback, like with Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, etc., at the end of the day, it doesn't always matter who's playing for you. He's going to make them all look good. They're going to make them all look good. Allen made Jake Kumro look good. You can make any of these guys look good. You just got to have the right quarterback. Now, obviously, that's not always the case. Obviously, you want a number one wide receiver. You want your number one tight end. But I'm just saying, these quarterbacks are so good, they could plug just about anybody in, and they'd be all right. The issue or concern with Mahomes going into this year was he doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore. But that doesn't seem to matter, considering he has Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling now. Mecole Hardman's coming back for another year. They seem to be doing all right. They still got Kelce, obviously, and he's killing it like always. It seemed like Kansas City's going to be all right. And they drafted these rookies who are playing good on defense, so they're doing all right. They're doing all right for themselves. Given that only Mahomes threw for two, Mahomes had 24 completions for 235 yards for 2 touchdowns. No interceptions. Given that Mahomes usually throws for more than 235 yards, usually he's throwing for 300 yards or more, just like he did week 1 against the Cardinals. He was killing it, 5 touchdown passes. But even though Mahomes only had 235 yards, the Kansas City Chiefs still played good. Now, given the Chargers should have won this game, but the Chiefs still did enough to win the game. Plus the Chargers, they blew it, so... Herbert, on the other hand, he went for 33 completions for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception, given that interception was the pick six we were just talking about. But Herbert plays good against the Chiefs. Before this game, Herbert was 2-0 against the Kansas City Chiefs. He was looking to go 3-0. So it's not like Herbert is always losing to the Chiefs. He was 2-0 against them before going into this game. He's been able to win against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just a matter of the fact that rib cartilage injury happened to him, and Everett didn't even have his hands up. He was tired, and it was miscommunication, and they just couldn't get it done. Given they did get a touchdown late in the game, it was already too late, though. And not to mention, Brandon Staley wasn't going for it on 4th down like he normally would. He wasn't being himself. He wasn't being the aggressive coach that everyone was saying he was last year. Like, if that's your thing, if your thing is to be aggressive, then you go for it. You can't just stop doing what you're doing because of all the criticism or whatever it was. If you're an aggressive head coach, you should be aggressive. Like, stick to your philosophy. Like, stick to what you know is right. Because at the end of the day, you have to do the best that you can to your ability as a coach with your strengths. If your strength as a coach is to go for it, and Brandon Staley did that a lot last year. Well, why would you all of a sudden switch everything up, go a complete 180 and be conservative, especially against the Kansas City Chiefs, and you have Justin Herbert as your quarterback? Why would you be conservative? That doesn't make any sense to me. That was like when that's like when McDermott was being conservative in the AFC divisional game. The Bills, I believe, was 4th and 1 or 4th and inches in the third quarter, and they punt the ball. You have Josh Allen. Why aren't you going for it? Or in the AFC Championship game in 2020, the Bills were, we're gonna do defense, we're gonna run the ball. Like, you have Josh Allen. Throw the fucking ball. Be aggressive. I don't understand sometimes why these coaches have these top tier quarterbacks and you are being conservative. You're wasting their career doing that. You're not going to be successful. If you're not going to utilize your quarterback to his strengths, you're not going to be successful. Especially with these young guys now. These guys like to throw the ball, and they'll throw it down the field. Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, Rodgers and Brady do it too still. They'll throw it down the field, man. These great quarterbacks, they throw it down the field. And Burrow too, when he's not getting fucking sacked. That's a whole nother thing. We'll get to that game in a sec. The Chargers had this game and they fucking blew it. They fucking blew it. And honestly, it wasn't just the fact that Herbert got hurt for me. It's the fact that Brandon Staley decided to be conservative, and that fucked him. Not to mention that it's like you could have just you could have probably taken a timeout there. You could have just taken a second, give your guys a breather, instead of having Everett huffing and puffing before you throw the ball to him again, and then he doesn't even put his hands up to catch it. I mean, there's just miscommunication, just a mess for the Chargers. They need to work that shit out. Otherwise, they're going to be looking at themselves not being in the playoffs and Justin Herbert being in his third year, never going to the playoffs, and that's not going to be good for their organization whatsoever. The next game here was Cleveland and the Jets, and the Jets win this one 31-30, coming back in the fourth quarter with no business coming back in the fourth quarter. No business, especially with Joe fucking Flacco at quarterback, because I don't know what it is, but the Jets did some voodoo magic or something, and all of a sudden, Joe Flacco's looking like himself from 2012. That's what Urinating Tree was saying in his one video. I thought it was funny, but it's true. Like, where did this come from? Not to mention, Joe Flacco is 17-3 against the Browns, all time. Going back to his days in Baltimore, playing him twice a year explains record, but this guy's been killing the Browns for years. Comes back from the depths of football hell and just beats him again. And Garrett Wilson over the middle just wins the game for them, the rookie. And it's crazy. Because after Nick Chubb rushes for the touchdown, Corey Davis also gets a 66-yard pass from Joe Flacco. They kick. It's 30-24 Cleveland. And then, like I just said, the Garrett Wilson touchdown after the kick's good by Zerline, 31-30. That's the ball game. I mean, you blew it. You literally could have slid on the ground and allow the clock to chew instead of leaving a minute 55 left, believe it or not, for Joe Flacco because your team blew it. It's just crazy. It's just inexcusable by Cleveland. It's just not a good look. Flacco went 26 out of the 44 attempts for 307 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just pulled that right out of his ass. Honestly, if Joe Flacco keeps playing this good, you're going to have a quarterback controversy with the Jets, because why would you want to go back to Zach Wilson if Flacco decides to just have this magic year or whatever he's pulling right now with the Jets? But we'll see. Like I said, this is week 2 here. It's still early, just like I said last week's video. It's still early, but this is nuts. No one would have seen Flacco coming. Nobody saw that coming. Brissett had 22 completions for 229 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Brissett hasn't been playing bad for Cleveland. The Thursday night game just happened tonight. At the time of this recording, he didn't play bad. He got them the win for Pittsburgh. We'll talk about that next week. Brissett's not doing a bad job filling in for Deshaun Watson. Given he is being mostly a game manager, he's doing a little bit better than a game manager. Brissett, he's doing all right. He's filling in well. I think he's definitely a good backup option. And if anything, if there's a team looking to find people that can be for a starting job next year, you could see Jacoby Brissett being one of those guys if he continues to play well. because he's doing all right now for these first couple weeks of the season. But we'll just have to wait and see on how that goes, because he's still got a little ways to go here before Deshaun Watson can come back, obviously. Speaking of Joe Burrow, after I was just mentioning that horrid offensive line, Dallas wins 20-17, and honestly, the Bengals couldn't get anything going. Burrow was getting pressured all day, and he was trying to do too much, and just it was a sloppy performance by the Bengals. Not to mention Cooper Rush, he didn't play bad for Dallas. Why is Cooper Rush looking better in that offense than Dak Prescott? After last week, Dak Prescott looked horrible, and Cooper Rush comes in and he doesn't look too bad, given this is against his Bengals team that there's a lot of question marks around right now, considering the fact that they don't at all look like the same team from last year. They're 0-2. Again, season's still early, but they don't look like the team that just went to the Super Bowl last year. They don't look anything like that. And Joe Burrow is not having a good start to his year either. And he's getting sacked still. The Bengals upgrade every position on the offensive line after left tackle. They get a new left guard, they get a new center, right guard, right tackle. They upgrade the line and it's somehow worse. How the fuck does that make any sense? You upgrade your offensive line and it's fucking worse. That's fucking sad. That's fucking sad. That's atrocious. They added Lyle Collins, Ted Karras. I mean, you would think, okay, the Bengals are finally looking to protect their quarterback. He's still taking sacks. He's still getting hit in year 3. And there's only so much Burrow can take before something might happen. And that would just not be good to see Burrow get hurt again. But it's a possibility, because if this offensive line can't protect him, he's going to keep getting sacked. And if this keeps happening year to year to year, Joe Burrow's not going to last very long in the league. Your body can only take so many hits. And if this Bengals offensive line continues to play the way it's been playing these last couple years with Joe Burrow ain't going to be around forever. So the offensive line's got to lock it in gear and figure it the fuck out, because the life of your franchise quarterback depends on it. Like real shit, like real talk, like you need to get that fucking crap right. You need to get that shit right. Another thing I want to mention by Dallas, Noah Brown looked really good in this game. Given he was probably being, I mean, you had like Eli Apple and those guys covering him, but he looked good though. He looked good for not doing anything since he joined the Cowboys in 2017. Also, Cooper Rush was an undrafted free agent by Dallas in 2017, and he was kind of bouncing around for a little while before coming back to Dallas. But, Cooper Rush, I mean, despite 31 attempts on 19 completions, he had 235 yards and a touchdown. For a guy coming off the bench, that's good. For a guy coming off the bench, that's pretty good. 95.5 quarterback rating. Not bad. He had a better day than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had 24 completions for 199 yards and 1 touchdown, 89.9 QB rating. Nothing could really get going here. I mean, Micah Parsons was an animal in this game. He's been an animal since the start of the year. 2 sacks, 4 combined tackles, 2 for a loss, 5 quarterback hits. 5. That's a fucking hell of a game for Micah Parsons, and he's looking like a dog. I wanted the Bills to get Micah Parsons, but I knew we were way too far back in the draft to get him and move up. The Cowboys got to Burrow, though. I mean, Armstrong Jr. had 2 tackles for a loss, 2 QB hits. Leighton Vander Esch had a tackle for a loss. He had a QB hit. Dante Fowler, yes, he's on the Cowboys, had a QB hit. He had 2 combined tackles. They were getting after that fucking Cincinnati offense all day. Miserable day for that offensive line. Y'all got to get your fucking shit together, like I said. Not looking good. Not looking good at all for the Bengals right now. Joe Mixon had 19 attempts for 57 yards. He didn't look good. Jamar Chase, he had 5 receptions for 54 yards. He was quiet. T. Higgins had 6 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. That ain't bad. Not a bad day for him. Hayden Hurst had 5 receptions for 24 yards. But again, this offense just can't get going. Drew Sample got hurt. Hayden Hurst is questionable right now. It's just not looking good for the Cincinnati Bengals whatsoever. It's just not looking good for them at all. Zeke had 15 attempts for 53 yards. Tony Pollard had 9 attempts for 43 yards and a touchdown. I've been saying this the last couple of years, and I'm going to say it again. Tony Pollard is going to take over Zeke's job. I've been saying it the last couple of years now, and it's bound to happen. Zeke is in the final year of his fully guaranteed money. After this, there's no more fully guaranteed money. The Cowboys are going to dump Zeke. I don't see how Zeke can stay on this roster. They've been eating this contract. They've been regretting it, I think, ever since the first full year of signing it. It just hasn't gone well for Zeke since he signed that massive deal. It looked like Zeke took the bag and dipped too, honestly. And Zeke was fun to watch at the beginning when he first got here in 2016 in the league. He's not at all look like that same Zeke. You could even make an argument for Dak Prescott, too. He hasn't looked the same since he entered the league, but I think Tony Pollard's going to be the starting running back next year. Not to mention he'd be a cheaper option than what Zeke's getting. It's just not looking good for Zeke either, honestly. Noah Brown, though, like I said, 5 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb at 7 receptions for 75 yards, no touchdowns. But for a guy coming off the bench, Cooper Rush don't look bad. For a guy coming off the bench, he don't look bad. I saw a post by Adam Schefter today saying that Jerry Jones would welcome a quarterback controversy right now. What a surprise. How could Jerry not love his drama? And then he wonders why his team doesn't win fucking Super Bowls. Well, when you say shit like that, that's fucking why, Jerry. The Bengals better figure it out now or they're not going to go anywhere this year. Dallas, I don't think Dallas is going to go anywhere this year either. Their team does not look good. I think they need to rebuild. Philly looks like they're going to take the division. But I really just don't think the Cowboys are going anywhere this year. They don't look good. Washington with Carson Wentz right now looks good. We'll wait to see how that goes. Usually it's a roller coaster with Carson Wentz. Giants are rebuilding. Although it seems like Brian Dable is trying to repeat a Bills 2017 season with his team. Honestly, I think the Eagles are going to win it this year. Jalen Hurts is looking really good. A.J. Brown looks like a stud with that team. Devonta Smith going into his second year. You have Miles Sanders as running back. They have a really good offensive line. I think the Eagles are going to win that whole division. And we'll talk about that game in a second. I don't see Dallas doing anything. Not to mention that there hasn't been a consecutive NFC East winner since 2004. Back when they had Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook, they had T.O., all those guys. There hasn't been a consecutive winner in a minute. I don't see there being one this year either. Not to mention the division has been garbage. But like I said, gonna sound like a broken record saying it through the whole video, but it's true. It's still early. So we'll just have to wait and see. Next game here though, Houston playing the Denver Broncos. And this was a barn burner. 16-9 the final score. Denver takes the win. And like I said, after last week with Nathaniel Hackett's worst ever first impression as a head coach in the league, worst ever start to being a head coach, he didn't really do anything to fucking help that case. He didn't really do anything to help his cause this past week, only putting up 16 points, and Russell Wilson's your quarterback. It took you to the fourth fucking quarter to finally get a touchdown pass. The fourth quarter. The whole game is just field goals. 2 field goals in the first quarter, 2 field goals in the second quarter, 1 field goal in the third quarter, and then the touchdown pass by Russell Wilson to their backup tight end, Eric Saubert. I believe that's how you say his last name. There's a 50-yard field goal by Brandon McManus towards the end of the game with 3 minutes and 36 seconds left. What a fucking shit show. There's not much I have to say about this game. It was boring. Nathaniel Hackett looks lost out there. Nobody knows what they're doing in Denver, it seems. And I didn't have high hopes with the Denver Broncos coming into this season. Given that, yes, they did get an upgraded quarterback. I will give them that. They have a first-time head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, who looks awful. First-time offensive coordinator, first-time defensive coordinator, and first-time special teams coordinator. They have an inexperienced coaching staff. Nobody knows what is going on in Denver. Seems like nobody does. And it's just not looking good for Russell Wilson either, as there's now reports coming out saying that Pete Carroll's going to start throwing the ball with Geno Smith. So now we're going to let Geno cook in Seattle. Right now, it's just not looking good for Russell Wilson whatsoever. Moving on to the next game. Lions playing the Commanders. The Commies. Lions take the win, 36-27 in their own building. And like I said, the Lions are really building something. I've been saying it all offseason with my friends when we'd have conversations or family. I really feel like the Lions are building something here, and they had a good game. They had a pretty good game here. It was competitive all the way through. They stayed in and they won the game. And Jared Goff didn't look too bad. He actually had a good day. He was 20 of 34 for 256 yards and 4 touchdowns. We haven't seen that kind of performance from Goff since 2018 back with the Rams. Carson Wentz, he didn't look bad either. 30 of 46 for 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Well, I'll just have to wait and see, like I said, with the Wentz roller coaster. But right now, Wentz is playing some pretty good football, actually, in Washington, which is surprising. But at the same time, he does have Terry McLaurin, rookie Jahan Dotson. Logan Thomas isn't a bad tight end. He has a receiving back with J.D. McKissick. Curtis Samuel is coming off an injury, although he looks good. Antonio Gibson in the backfield as well. Hopefully, Brian Robinson is going to come back soon. I know he had that robbery attempt happen to him, which was just upsetting to see. Obviously still praying for a recovery fast for him, but he seems to be back on track. Good for him. Like I said though, the Lions look like they're really building something here. Amar St. Brown had a fucking game. 9 receptions for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns, still making every team pay for passing up on him. DeAndre Swift had 5 attempts for 56 yards rushing, 2 receptions for 31 yards and a touchdown. So even if DeAndre Swift doesn't have the best day running the ball, he's still a threat receiving as well. So that's good to see for him. You know, Josh Reynolds had 3 receptions for 28 yards. TJ Hawkinson had only 3 receptions for 26 yards. But these weapons are, you know, getting better for the Lions, and they're continuing to be a force to be reckoned with. Not to mention first-round pick Aiden Hutchinson had a fucking day. 6 combined tackles, 2 for a loss, 3 quarterback hits. A great day for him. Still absurd to me that he was the 2nd overall pick. He should have went 1st overall. But Jacksonville liked Trayvon Walker. Given he's a hell of an athlete, Trayvon Walker. But Aiden Hutchinson should have been the clear-cut number 1 overall pick, but he gets to go to Detroit. I think they're happy with that pick. Looks like it's right now a great first impression for them as they're still building their team in Detroit. Can't really complain. It was just a competitive game all the way through. Next up, Packers at Bears. We were forced to watch another Sunday night football game between the Bears and Packers, football's oldest rivalry. This game was fucking boring. I don't know if anyone actually watched it. I did. It was fucking boring. Given Green Bay still got the win as per usual, despite not having any receivers still really to throw to for Aaron Rodgers. This game was just boring. I understand like why the NFL does it. You know, the rivalry's over 100 years old. It's a big part of the sport. I get it. But it's so boring. Why does it have to be in prime time all the time? I just don't get it. They just need to stop doing it because it was a snooze fest. The first quarter, Chicago got a touchdown, Green Bay had a field goal. Second quarter, Green Bay got 3 touchdowns, so that was interesting. But after that, Chicago got a field goal in the third quarter, Green Bay gets a field goal in the fourth quarter. Nothing really crazy. Being in today's NFL, with it being so high scoring, high intensity with these young quarterbacks, that's all you want to see now, especially as a fan. I mean, really think about it. Fans want offense. Nobody wants defense. Unless you're a defensive-minded head coach or defensive coordinator, those are the only people that want defense. Everybody else wants offense. Everybody wants to see a shootout. Everybody wants to see a showdown. Like, nobody wants to fucking watch a defensive football game anymore. I also don't think anyone has a fucking attention span for it anymore. But it was boring. Unless you're a Packers fan, watching them beat the Bears, it was boring. But gotta give a credit to the Packers after a rough week against Minnesota. They still win into their own building. They got the job done. They got the W. They beat a division team, so that's going to help them in the standings. After losing right away to Minnesota, that's going to help them in the long run. Aaron Rodgers had 19 of 25 completions for 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, although he was sacked 3 times. David Bakhtiari still out with an injury, and they're still paying for that. They did have Elton Jenkins come back, which was good to see. That certainly did help Aaron Rodgers with his pass protection. Justin Fields had 7 of 11 completions for 70 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Not a great day for Justin Fields. Really, just not a good day for him. David Montgomery, though, had a day on the ground. He had 15 attempts for 122 yards, although he had no touchdowns, but he had a day running the ball. But it was really quiet for that Bears offense. Nothing really got going for Chicago in this game. Although it was better than Indy, who got shut out by Jacksonville. Indianapolis has not won a game in Jacksonville since 2014. since 2014. What the fuck? I'm not a fucking Colts fan, but oh my god. That's embarrassing. Back when you had Andrew Luck, you couldn't even win in Jacksonville. You know, a lot of talk this past offseason for the Colts was how Carson Wentz was the problem. They just couldn't win because they didn't have a good quarterback. And honestly, right now, as we're going into week 3 here, so far, it seems like Carson Wentz really wasn't the problem. More so the coaching. And Matt Ryan right now looks like straight dog water. 16 of 30 completions for 195 yards and 3 interceptions. 34 quarterback rating. Matt Ryan looks old. He looks done for. Like, he looks like he has nothing left in the tank. And it's sad to see, since I've been watching him since I was a kid, you know, growing up in the NFL during the early 2010s. It's sad to see as an NFL fan in general, but I mean, he does not look like he has anything left in the tank anymore. And all offseason, we just kept hearing how Carson Wentz was the problem in Indy. I honestly think it's got to be coaching, whether it's Frank Reich or just their offensive philosophy, or maybe it's Chris Ballard, just the fact that this guy hasn't been able to find a quarterback, although he's been good at getting everything else for this team. Frank Reich, like I said last week, was on the hot seat. If you didn't think of that back last week, if you didn't agree with me on that, if you didn't agree with me that Frank Reich was on the hot seat, I would hope you agree with me now that he's definitely on the hot seat after this game, because it just got hotter for him. This is not at all a good look for the Indianapolis Colts, constantly losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville, when this team should be better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. They just can't seem to win. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, 25 of 30 completions, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a good day. Probably, honestly, his best game we've seen from him so far. What Trevor Lawrence is doing right now is what he should have done his rookie year, but dealing with the whole Urban Meyer situation. It was just a mess in Jacksonville last year. But now with Doug Peterson, it seems like Lawrence is starting to get going. So that's good for Jacksonville. They're finally getting some type of return on their investment. Christian Kirk looks like so far he's doing good there. You know, he broke the receiver market, and he had 6 receptions for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a good day. Evan Ingram, who also got a contract with Jacksonville, had 7 receptions for 46 yards. Marvin Jones had 3 receptions for 33 yards. Zay Jones, former Bill, had 3 receptions for 23 yards. So they're finding a way to get their offense going now and utilizing it with Doug Peterson. But Indy, I mean, just what the fuck? I mean, even Jonathan Taylor had 9 attempts for 54 yards. Could get nothing going. The Colts didn't even get off the bus. Just a shit show for them. It's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. Like, you got to get better. You got to do better. You got to do better. There's not anything else I can say. The Colts look like shit. You got to get better. You got to do better. Moving on. Tampa Bay at New Orleans. This was another quiet game, if you want to put it that way, other than the drama. But this was another low-scoring affair. Tampa Bay gets the win, 20-10. Mike Evans got suspended for a game after getting into another fight with Marshawn Lattimore. For whatever reason, Mike Evans cannot do anything against Marshawn Lattimore. I don't know why, but it's been like that since Lattimore's showed up in New Orleans back in 2017. Mike Evans had 3 receptions for 61 yards. That was it. I mean, a quiet day for him. Tom Brady, 18 of 34 completions, 190 yards and 1 touchdown. Brady did not look good at all. That offense wasn't really that great. It's just they were able to get something finally going in the fourth quarter. A 28-yard pass from Tom Brady to Rashad Perryman for a touchdown. Suckup had a field goal later on in the fourth quarter. And then Mike Edwards got a 68-yard interception, which was returned for a touchdown. Just this Bucks team is definitely not the same team we saw in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. It's certainly not the same team we saw last year. Brady just looks beat up. The Bucks, they don't look good right now. They don't look good right now. They did just sign Cole Beasley to their practice squad, who they will plan on elevating to help their receiving game, but I just don't know what the plan is here for Tampa Bay. Like I said, I really think they're going to have to rely on Leonard Fournette this year, and they're really going to be a running team. He had 24 attempts for 65 yards, though. No touchdowns. But they gave him the ball 24 times. Like I said, this is going to be a running team because they don't want Brady to get hit. They don't want Brady to get hurt. He's 45. Jameis Winston, on the other hand, he didn't have a good day either. 25 of 40 completions for 236 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. He played with a back injury, and he also has an ankle injury. Looking here on MSN.com, it's saying that Jameis Winston has reported back issue. 4 of his 33 vertebrae in his back have been fractured. And he's also dealing with an injury to his ankle. And he still went out there and played. He's saying how he's not using it as a distraction or an excuse. And, you know, Jameis, I'll give you a pat on the back for the, going out there and, being the tough guy and trying to be a leader and everything. But, like, my guy, like, if you're hurt and it's affecting your game, which clearly it is, then you shouldn't be playing. It's like with Baker Mayfield last year in Cleveland. He wanted to get a new contract. Obviously, that didn't happen, but he played hurt because he wanted a new contract. And all it did was affect his game, and it didn't help him or the team whatsoever. And it's like, I understand Jameis wants to be the guy in New Orleans, but look, man, if you got 4 fractures in your vertebrae in your back, like, my guy, like, sit out. Like, you're just going to hurt yourself in the long run. I understand you're trying to, be the leader, be the quarterback, QB1 and all that, but, bro, if you're hurting, you got a legitimate injury, it's okay if you have to sit out. I mean, it sucks for the team and everything, but, like, if you're hurting, dude, you're hurting. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. Mark Ingram had 10 attempts for 58 yards. Kamara did not play in this game. Taysom Hill had 3 attempts for 14 yards rushing. He had no receptions. He's been all over the field for them, running it. Maybe he'll even play quarterback if Jameis ends up getting the boot and he has to go on IR or whatever it is. But he's all over the field, but he didn't get anything going. Michael Thomas had 6 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown. That was late in the fourth quarter, though, during garbage time. I mean, the game was just pretty much done for New Orleans at that point. New Orleans had a good day defensively. It's just the offense struggled, didn't help with the pick 6. Nothing went right offensively for the Saints. Defense kept them in the game. Hats off to that New Orleans defense, but offensively, not so good for them. Not so good for them whatsoever. Moving on. Carolina at New York. Brian Daboll gets his second win as they win 19-16. This was nothing special of a game, really. There was nothing special happening in this game. First quarter, Giants have a 36-yard field goal. Later on, with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, another field goal, 6-0. Second quarter, Panthers get 2 field goals. Third quarter, DJ Moore gets a 16-yard pass from Baker Mayfield. They go up a score. Later on in the game, Daniel Jones completes a 16-yard pass to Daniel Bellinger. Game's tied, and then the Giants get 2 field goals. The Panthers get 1 field goal in the fourth quarter. This was nothing really special of a game. It's nice to see Brian Daboll keep the Giants in it, though. It's nice to see him winning games, proving that coaches outside of the Sean McDermott coaching tree can win. It's not like Bill Belichick's coaching tree where they would go to other teams and just completely shit the bed, with the exception of Brian Flores when he was with the Dolphins. Daniel Jones was 22 of 34 completions for 176 yards and a touchdown. Baker Mayfield, he didn't have that good of a day. 14 completions out of 29 attempts for 145 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Baker Mayfield does not look good. And Matt Rule, another guy in the hot seat, I don't see how he's staying in Carolina after this year. And the Panthers, I believe, gave him a 7-year contract. Nothing has really gone at all good for the Panthers when Matt Rule came in. I don't really understand still to this day why they fired Ron Rivera. I really don't think it was, Ron Rivera's fault that Cam Newton got hurt and he was never the same after that. Like, Ron Rivera's a better head coach than Matt Rule. I don't know. Nothing's really gone right since Matt Rule came into the Panthers. It was a good idea. I mean, Matt Rule brought the Baylor program back up to its former glory, but he is in year 3 as a journeyman quarterback now with Baker Mayfield. He's pretty much going to be a journeyman quarterback. But he has a veteran quarterback with Baker Mayfield, leaving a shit situation in Cleveland, just end up in another shit situation in Carolina. Sam Darnold didn't work last year, and they're stuck with him because they gave him his 5th-year option the minute they traded for him. The fact that nobody got fired for that is just ridiculous. PJ Walker isn't anything special, although he did stand out in the XFL. I'll give him credit for signing him. Cam Newton came back last year, probably just so they could get some ticket sales, honestly, but Cam Newton didn't do anything. It has not been good for Carolina these last 3 years now. It's just nothing has gone really right for the organization. But you didn't really miss anything here. Nobody really wanted to watch this game unless you're a Giants or Panthers fan. But Brian Daboll gets a second win, so good for him. Next up, New England at Pittsburgh. Now, I don't know what the Pittsburgh Steelers are thinking when they run their offense, because I watched this game. I saw the Week 1 matchup against Cincinnati. I watched the Thursday night game that happened. Their philosophy on offense is garbage. It's fucking garbage. And they just look like dog shit. It's just ugly. Let me just look for an example here. Najee Harris runs for 2 yards. This is the first drive of the game. 4-yard completion by Mitch Trubisky to Claypool. 3rd and 4. Mitch Trubisky passing complete short right to Freiermuth. And then they punt. That's basically summing up what the Pittsburgh offense is right now. They run the ball, gain 2 yards, throw the ball short, gain 4 yards, 3rd and 4, sometimes it's 3rd and 3, sometimes it's 3rd and 5. Then it's an incomplete pass, or maybe they do run it again and it goes nowhere, and then they punt. Not to mention their offensive line isn't that good. Although their right side is improved, it's still not a good offensive line. I will say, given that maybe this is just my own opinion from like seeing Mitch Trubisky, not just looking at the stat sheet, but watching him in Pittsburgh, and then he was here in Buffalo last year, like watching him in Buffalo. I don't remember him being that bad on our team, because that's why I keep feeling like it's a philosophy, or it's like how they game plan their offense, and not so much it's all on Mitch Trubisky, because given their frustration towards Trubisky is understandable, I really don't feel like it's really his fault. I feel like it's more so their offensive coordinator. Pickens is getting open. Deontay Johnson, he's still making plays. Like, Claypool's still fun to watch when he makes plays. It's just, I think they just are running a shit offense. It's, it's like conservative, run, pass, run, short pass. It's no taking a deep shot. It's never, we're 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, and we're on the 50 or we're on their 40. Like, it's never we'll go for it. We'll just take the field goal. We'll play defense. It's like, what are you doing? And that's not to take away to say that Mike Tomlin's not a good head coach, because obviously he is. He's been around for a long time. But the problem I have with some of these coaches in the NFL, like I've mentioned already with McDermott, was like in the 2020 AFC Championship game against Kansas City. It's, we'll run the ball and we'll play defense and we'll win with defensive field goals. And it's like, what the fuck are you smoking? That is no way you to win anymore. Now, Bill Belichick, you could say the same for him, because that's kind of the offense he's been running, allowing Matt Patricia and fucking Joe Judge to run his offense. Basically kind of the same thing. Although I will say, that catch Nelson Aguilar made, was not expecting that. He had 6 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. He didn't look bad. He really didn't look bad. I'll give him that. Mac Jones was 21 of 35 completions for 252 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not a horrible day. Certainly not a great day for Mac Jones, given he had the interception. Kind of the same for Trubisky. looking at the stat sheet. I mean, watching him, he didn't look good. But when you look at the stat sheet, okay, 21 of 33 for 168 yards, elevated interception, he had a touchdown. But watching him, he really didn't look good. I mean, Mac Jones isn't really anything impressive, but he didn't have a bad day. Coming off a rough game in Miami, he was okay. The Steelers need to figure out an offense or get some actual offensive guru in there, somebody that's going to help. Because I know the fans are chanting Kenny Pickett. I get it. He's your first-round quarterback, local boy. I don't blame you. But with that offensive line, the shit offensive philosophy, I wouldn't start Kenny Pickett this year. I would really wait till next year because you're clearly not going anywhere. TJ Watt's hurt. You're not going anywhere. You might as well just let him sit on the bench instead of throwing him into the fire and then he gets hurt and then you gotta wait till next season or something. You're better off just playing Trubisky, and if you have to, Mason Rudolph. Just let the kid learn. Otherwise, you're honestly just gonna ruin him because he has no room to succeed in this system right now, which is annoying. And it's annoying that Mitch Trubisky can't find success either. You have Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens. They drafted Calvin Austin. You have Pat Freiermuth, who looks like a really good tight end, like Heath Miller was for them. They just can't get anything going. And I just, as much as you can sit here and say, well, yeah, Trubisky's not playing well, I mean, I don't know how you're going to play well when your offensive coordinator says run, pass, or run, short pass, third down, fourth down, pump the ball. Like, I just don't get it. I just personally don't get it. I've watched bits and pieces of the first game. I watched this game. I watched the Thursday night game. I don't know what they're doing. I really just don't know what they're doing. New England, they haven't improved. They've slightly regressed, losing Josh McDaniels. They're like managing wins, but they'll probably be third in the AFC East this year. The New England isn't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. It's going to be between Miami and Buffalo for the AFC East this year. New England, I think they need to honestly find a true number one wide receiver. And given it's still early for Mac Jones, he's really nothing special. He's not that athletic. He's just average. In a way, he reminds me of Joe Flacco. Like, Mac Jones could have one really great year and then that's kind of it. I think his ceiling is Joe Flacco. Like, I don't see Mac Jones doing anything crazy in this league. He might have one really good year, and I'm sure New England will take it, what they can get, but I just don't see this kid really doing anything. Given it's still early, he's already done better than I thought he would. I will give him that. I don't know. I'm not buying into the Mac Jones hype either. I don't really buy into the Tua hype. I just don't buy in general into Alabama quarterback hype because it usually never works. You're in the best program in college football. Given you do play the best of the best, but you have also the best of the best on your team. You don't really go through any adversity. Nick Saban's the best head coach in college football. I mean, it's basically a cakewalk for whatever quarterback's in there. So I'm not buying into any of the Alabama quarterback hype. But I will say I'm not allowed to make fun of Tua this week. That's what they said on WGR. And it's like, we're not allowed to make fun of Tua for a week. We're not allowed to talk bad about Tua. He had a good game, though. I'll stick to my opinion on Tua, but he had a good game. I will give him that. But we're not allowed to make fun of him for a week. Speaking of that, now that we're at this part of the roundtable, Miami at Baltimore. So this game looked like Baltimore had it. Looked like Baltimore had it in the bag. At the end of the first half, it's 28-7 Baltimore. By the end of the third quarter, it is now 35-14 Baltimore. After 3 touchdown passes by Tua Tagovailoa, 2 River Craycraft, and then 2 to Tyreek Hill, Justin Tucker gets a field goal, and then 14 seconds left of the fourth quarter, Tua completes a 7-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Waddle, and then that's the ball game. Baltimore's defense got injured, and then those guys that came in got absolutely cooked, and that is also my fear for the Bills, because the Bills have injuries on defense, just like how Baltimore got injuries on defense in this game, and then the backups came in and got cooked. Obviously, I worry about that for the Bills. Although the Bills' defense is better than the Ravens' defense, it's going to be a game. Like I said, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are not to be messed with. 2 deep threat receivers, fast, agile, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a fucking game for them. Tua had his best day, and this will probably honestly still be his best game of his whole career. even if he ends up working out, this is probably going to be his best game of his career. 36 of 50 attempts for 469 yards, 6 touchdowns, although he had 2 interceptions. Hell of a fucking game by Tua. Also, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were just insane, and they were able to get wide open and just destroy the Ravens secondary. Came back in the second half with a vengeance. Gotta give it to them. They got the win. I'm not going to say anything bad about Tua this week. I know last week I was talking about how I don't believe in Tua. I don't think he's a threat. I will stick to my opinion. I don't worry about Tua. I worry more about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But I'm going to shut my mouth for a week. And I will say this. If I'm wrong about Tua, I'll admit it. I will gladly admit that I'm wrong about Tua. I think the more good quarterbacks we have is better for the league, honestly. I think the better the quarterback, it's going to be good for the whole league. Because it'll be more competitive. It'll be a good games, you name it. I think the more better quarterbacks we have, the better. Look, I was wrong about Allen. I was wrong about Justin Herbert because I didn't think Herbert would work out because he never called the cadence at Oregon. And I've eaten my words on that, and I'll be the first to gladly admit I'm wrong about something. I believe I have a good knowledge of the game, but if I'm wrong about something, I will gladly admit it. I'm not going to sit here and say, no, if you listen to my podcast, you have to agree with everything I say. No, you don't have to. I have my opinions just like everybody has theirs. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. And it's not easy to evaluate a quarterback in this league. It's really not. We sit here all the time and talk about these young kids coming in out of each draft class, out of each college program, going on each team, or even if a quarterback gets traded from one team to another. We act like we know what we're talking about, but in reality, we don't. It's very hard to evaluate a quarterback. It's not easy, because if everyone did, then all 32 teams would have Hall of Fame quarterbacks every year. But obviously, that's not the case. Lamar didn't have a bad day. 21 of 29 for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 9 attempts on 119 yards and a touchdown. He ran for 79 yards. Lamar, I will say, that was a better showing from him passing the ball, but I'm still going to say, hell of an athlete, not crazy about him though in a pure passing situation, but I will say he had a good game. It's more on that defense. Their defense and the secondary got hurt. They got burnt by 2 really good receivers, number 1 and 3 receiver right now in the league, stats-wise, and it's just rotten luck. It's just bad luck for Baltimore. You know, there's 14 seconds left in the game, and Tua throws the ball to Jalen Waddle for the 7-yard touchdown, and then that's it. Ball game. Baltimore's 1-1. Miami's 2-0. Play till the clock hits 0. Game's not over till it's over. It's that simple. Mark Andrews had 9 receptions for 104 yards and a touchdown. Rashad Bateman had 4 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. 1 reception was 75 yards for Bateman, which is good to see for Baltimore, considering they drafted in the first round last year. Isaiah Likely, the rookie tight end, had 4 receptions for 43 yards. Devin Duvernay had 2 receptions for 42 yards. Demarcus Robinson had 1 reception for 12 yards. Lamar in the offense didn't have a bad day. It was just the fact that it was that defense. Other than Lamar running it, though, running backs didn't get anything going. Dobbins is still out. Kenyon Drake had 6 attempts for 8 yards. Not good. Justice Hill had 3 attempts for 16 yards. Can't get anything going in the running game. Mike Davis had 5 attempts for 4 yards. And not a good showing at all for the Baltimore running back room. They're missing J.K. Dobbins right now, and they really need him to come back. But Miami gets the win, and Baltimore moves on to the next week. You got to have a short memory. You just got to keep going. It's just clock hits 0. They won the ball game. It is what it is. L.A. Rams versus Atlanta Falcons. Rams get the win, although Falcons almost came back in this one. A lot of comebacks this past week. That's why I'm glad the Bills just kept shoving it down Tennessee's throat, because they're like, we're not going to be involved in that. Falcons had a chance to break the curse of 28-3. It was 28-3 LA. Falcons almost came back and won this game. Final score 31-27, obviously. Falcons were so close to breaking the curse, and I was rooting for them. I was rooting for them to break the curse. And they didn't. And they found a way to fuck it up, because they're the Atlanta Falcons. Marcus Mariota had 17 of 26 completions for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. Matthew Stafford had 27 of 36 completions for 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Cooper Kupp, 11 receptions for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Higbee, 7 receptions for 71 yards. Allen Robinson, 4 receptions for 53 yards and a touchdown after not showing up in week 1 because Matthew Stafford just wanted to throw the ball to him for whatever reason. Darrell Henderson had 10 attempts for 47 yards. Cam Akers, 15 attempts for 44 yards. Nothing really got going for the Rams running back game, or for the Rams running backs. Cordero Patterson, Swiss Army knife, had 10 attempts for 41 yards rushing and 1 target, but no receptions or yards. Drake London, rookie, had 8 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. He's looking good for a rookie. He's looking really good right now. Atlanta doesn't seem to miss on receivers, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Atlanta seems to always have good receivers, and it seems like Drake London's looking like he's going to be a future number 1 wide receiver if he keeps it going. Now, obviously, we're still early here, but if he keeps it going, he's looking like he's going to be a force, and I liked him coming out of USC. I liked him coming out of the draft. I mean, obviously, he had the ankle injury, but he's looking good. He's looking good despite having that ankle injury. But, man, Falcons had a chance to break this fucking curse. They were right there, too. It was 28-3 in the third quarter. They started coming back. 6 seconds left to get the ball back, go for that big play, and nothing goes right. Mariota gets sacked, they fumble the ball, and then that was the ball game. But I will say, the Falcons are at least being competitive, and they honestly looked like they were going to be the worst team in football. And they're being competitive. So, hats off to Arthur Smith for keeping these guys in the games and being competitive, especially with Marcus Mariota. I mean, gotta give him credit for that. Seahawks at 49ers. 49ers win the game 27-7. Trey Lance goes down early with a season-ending ankle injury. That's unfortunate for him. So Jimmy Garoppolo comes back in, is now going to be the starter for the rest of the 2022 season. And will probably be Jimmy G's last season, although you never know. They could keep him around if they really want to as a backup again, but I think this is Jimmy G's last season. But he will be the starter for 1 more year with the San Francisco 49ers since joining the team back in 2017. Before Trey Lance went down, he was 2 of 3 for 30 yards. Jimmy G comes in. He did play a game manager role, but he got them the win. Came in, did his thing, did what he was supposed to do. He was 13 of 21 completions for 154 yards and a touchdown. He got sacked once. Geno Smith for the Seahawks was 24 of 30 attempts, 197 yards and interception. No touchdowns for him. The lone touchdown came by Seattle Seahawks corner Michael Jackson, which blocked a field goal. Took it to the house for 85 yards. But Seattle could get nothing going. All they've been throwing the ball more with Geno. Like I said, I guess they're going to let Geno cook, but they wouldn't let Russ cook. I just don't know. But there's a lot of drama coming out about Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll and John Schneider, and I guess not a lot of people liked Russell Wilson in that locker room. We'll have to look more into that one of these days and talk about it on an episode. But it seems like things just were not looking too good for Seattle in that locker room with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll and John Schneider, the GM. Seems like nothing was really going right. Richard Sherman was talking about it on his podcast, but ugly things were going on in that locker room. And before we go back to the Buffalo Monday Nighter, just talk about some last minute things from that game. We'll talk about the other Monday night game. Vikings at the Eagles. And I guess ESPN's trying this new thing out on Monday Night Football where they want to do more than one game. I guess it has something to do with the NFL Red Zone. I don't understand it. ESPN already has enough shit. I don't know why they're trying to do more. Whatever. So it's stupid, but it is what it is. I mean, last time I checked, Monday night is for one fucking game only. But things change all the time. It is what it is. And the Eagles defense shut down Justin Jefferson. Jalen Hurts was on fire in this game. Hurts was 26 of 31 completions for 333 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have an interception. He rushed on 11 attempts for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hurts is a force, absolute force right now for the Eagles, and I did not see that coming. I certainly thought that Jalen Hurts would have a better year with A.J. Brown in that system. I don't mind Nick Sirianni as a head coach. I certainly thought that it would help Hurts, but we're seeing Hurts make a jump here. Especially after that last playoff game when the Eagles were playing Tampa Bay. It didn't look good for that Eagles offense, but the addition of A.J. Brown, they're looking really good. And on defense, they added Hassan Reddick, they added C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They're looking like a good team in Philadelphia. They're looking like a really good team. Miles Sanders rushed the ball for 80 yards on 17 attempts, no touchdowns. Boston Scott had 4 attempts for 19 yards, no touchdowns. Dallas Goedert had 5 receptions for 82 yards. Devonta Smith, 7 receptions for 80 yards. A.J. Brown, 5 receptions for 69 yards. Quez Watkins had 2 receptions for 69 yards coming off the bench. It was a good day overall for the Eagles offense. Not to mention, Darius Slay shut out Justin Jefferson. The defense just completely got rid of Justin Jefferson, and the Vikings could do nothing without Justin Jefferson. It goes to show you how important he is to that offense and how important he is to that team. Kirk Cousins looked like shit on another Monday Night Football game. What a surprise. The dude just can't win in Monday Night Football. He's 0-9 on Monday Night Football. He cannot win in Monday night. If I'm Kevin O'Connell, maybe I think about looking for a new quarterback if he can't play in primetime games. Not to say that Kirk Cousins is awful, because last year he had the second best touchdown interception ratio in the entire league. Coming into this year, it was actually high on Kirk Cousins, but if your quarterback can't play well in the big games, he shouldn't be your franchise quarterback. I'm just saying. Darius Slay had 2 interceptions for 19 yards, and like I said, just completely shut out Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson had 6 receptions for 48 yards, no touchdowns. Completely ineffective in this ball game. Adam Thielen had 4 receptions for 52 yards and no touchdowns. Like I said, Kirk Cousins had 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Not a good day for the Vikings offense whatsoever. They could get nothing going. Nothing went right for them. First loss for Kevin O'Connell. Not a good look. Not a good look for them. Eagles look like a fucking favorite right now in the NFC. They look like the team to beat right now in the NFC. And maybe that's a hot take by me. I mean, obviously, LA's still good. Obviously, you know, the Bucs have Brady. Green Bay has Aaron Rodgers. Eagles look like the best team to me in the NFC right now. And maybe they didn't show it by only having 24 points, but they looked good, man. They looked like a good team. Gotta fucking give credit to Jalen Hurts because he carried the team on his back and he delivered. He fucking delivered. So good for him. Obviously, we talk about the Bills game. What a win at home for them. And they needed it, especially after last year's home opener losing to Pittsburgh the way they did. They needed that win, and I'm glad that they won that game. I know I've been talking quite a bit about week 3 here, but it's just such a big game. It's such an important game. It's what we're on to now. The final injury reports, pretty much for both Buffalo and Miami. Both teams have key injuries. It's not just the Bills. Like, the Dolphins have some key injuries. Not as much as the Bills. But Gabe Davis is questionable. Micah Hyde's ruled out. Dane Jackson's ruled out. Cam Lewis was a full participant. He's fine. Dawson Knox is questionable. Matt Milano was a full go. He should be fine. Mitch Morse is questionable, although I think he should be okay. Ed Oliver's out again. Jordan Phillips is out with a hamstring. Jordan Poyer's questionable with the foot, but he should be alright. Tim Settle is questionable, but I think he might actually play. We'll see. Who knows? He's 50-50. Reggie Gilliam's fine. Stephon Diggs and Tywan Jones has had vet rest. Miami, Teron Armstead has a toe injury. He did not practice all week. Xavier Howard has a groin injury. He did not practice Wednesday. He was limited participant in practice Thursday and Friday. He's questionable. Melvin Ingram, he's on vet rest. He's playing. Cedric Wilson, he was a limited participant. He's questionable. Hunter Long, their tight end's out. Just some depth pieces are out, but they got some injuries too. I still think the Bills have a good chance. You have J17. You have Stephon Diggs. Bills could still pull this off, but I honestly think it's going to be a shootout. I don't see any defense in this game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. That's just my opinion, though. Miami could come out of this with the victory. Considering all the key injuries to the Bills on defense, Miami could come out of this in the victory. Will it matter in the long run? It could. It could. It might. But Miami could come out with a win on this one. I will say that. But I think with Josh Allen, the Bills will always still have a chance. Obviously, Josh Allen can't play defense. He can't play all 11 positions on offense. But the Bills aren't out just yet. They said on SiriusXM, Gabe Davis looks to play. So I think he's playing, despite the non-contact ankle he suffered last Saturday. But despite the injuries, I still think it's going to be a good game. Obviously, I didn't think the injury report was going to be this lengthy. I don't think anybody did. I don't even think anybody thought the Dolphins would have a lengthy injury report. But it's the NFL. It's a high-intensity game. The game gets faster every year. You're going to have guys get hurt. You're going to have veterans on rest days. It is what it is. But I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a big game for the Bills and for the Dolphins, like I said earlier in the video. Looking forward to it. Like I said, the Thursday night game just happened. Browns beat the Steelers. We'll talk about that next week. I do think this is going to be a big game, though. I really do. I really do. Going ahead to week 3, Chiefs are taking on the Colts. Chiefs are going to win the game. No fucking question. Bears play the Texans. I think the Bears are going to win that game. Saints play the Panthers. I'm going to go with the Saints. The Panthers look ugly. Titans versus Raiders. Both teams are 0-2. I'm going to go with the Raiders. Titans just don't look good at all whatsoever. They looked like absolute dog shit. Saw it with my own eyes. Derrick Henry couldn't get anything going. He looks like he's slowing down. I don't know, man. I don't know what's the future for Tennessee, but it's not looking bright. Bengals at Jets. I'm going to go with the Bengals. Although that offensive line is atrocious, it's still the Jets. But the Jets have been a surprise after last week. So that game could go either way. I'm going to take the Bengals, though. Although they've been the bungles lately, I'm going to take the Bengals. They have the better quarterback. But we'll see. Maybe that's a hot take by me for not taking the Jets, despite the Bengals' lackluster offensive line. Bills at Dolphins. I have a conscious bias towards the Bills. I'm going to take the Bills. Miami could come out of this with a win, though. It's 50-50. Me having a conscious bias towards the Bills. Being a Bills fan, I'm going to take the Bills all day. Bills by 1 billion. But the Dolphins can, realistically, they could win this game with the injuries. Eagles at Commanders. Carson Wentz facing his former team. I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think they're the best team in the NFC right now. I don't see the Commanders stopping them. It'll be a high-scoring game. It could be. It definitely could be. But I'm going to go with the Eagles. Lions at Vikings. I'm going to go with the Vikings just because they're coming off an ugly loss. I think Justin Jefferson's going to go off again. I really do. The Vikings don't look like a bad team. The Lions are going to stay in it, though. I think the Vikings are going to win, though. Ravens at Patriots. I'm taking the Ravens because the Patriots don't have anybody electrifying on offense. It's really an offensive league now. I'm going to take Lamar Jackson. It's just a matter of whether or not that Baltimore defense can keep up. But I'm going to go with the Ravens. Jaguars at Chargers. Justin Herbert's questionable, but I think he's going to play. I'm going to go with the Chargers. Despite that, I'm going to go with the Chargers. Packers at Buccaneers. Given this is Brady versus Rodgers, Brady doesn't look that good. The offense isn't the same. They're relying on Leonard Fournette. I'm going to go with the Packers here. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. Despite that Sammy Watkins isn't playing for them, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to go with the Packers. Rams at Cardinals. This game for me is a toss-up because obviously the Rams are probably the better team. Matt Stafford hasn't looked as good as he normally did last year. Matt Stafford does not look as good as he did last year. The Cardinals go win this game. I'm just going to go with the Rams, though. Falcons at Seahawks. I'm going to take the Falcons. I think they were close to winning last week. I think they're going to win. They're going to get their first win here. Seattle cannot generate points on offense. I'm going to go with the Falcons here. 49ers at Broncos on Sunday Night Football. I'm going to take the 49ers because the Broncos can't get anything going on offense. Nathaniel Hackett is not a good head coach. I'm going to take the 49ers. And then Monday night, Cowboys at Giants. I'm going to go with the Giants because the Cowboys with Cooper Rush, they do not look terrible with him. But I'm going to take the Giants here because Daboll has been working these guys hard over time. The Giants may not be as bad as everyone thinks they are. And certainly whatever they're doing right now is working to win them games. So I'm going to take the Giants here. Might be some cold takes, hot takes, whatever you want to call it. But this is my first time doing game picks. So we'll see just how well or just how awful this goes. But we're going to wrap it up here. That is my rundown for week 2. Like I said, these are quick summaries. Obviously, if you're a diehard fan like I am, or you pay attention, you follow the sport, you already know all this stuff by now. And you know more if you're a fan of whatever team. But we're going to end it here today. We're going to obviously talk about Bills next week and what else went on around the league. Still working on the Sabres video. We're going to push that out soon. They're doing training camp right now. I'm on TikTok now. We're going to start boosting our followers. I'm going to start putting bits on here. Or I'm going to start putting bits from here on TikTok. Follow me at Slack and McCracken. Should show up Slack and McCracken Sports Podcast, the profile picture. I'm on TikTok now. I've been posting some pictures throughout the other seasons just to help out with the following, but I've been posting some NFL stuff on there, just low-key things, like pictures from the 2016, 2019, 2017 seasons. But we're going to start getting that going, and that's pretty much it. If you stay with me to this point, if you bear with me to this point, I appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on TikTok, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.